Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. I'm Brandon Mileski. Pat Micheletti with me as always. It's brought to you by SodaStick.com. Hi, Pat.
Hello, Brandon. Good to see you.
It's not often we have two guests in a podcast, and we have two big guests today. We're hoping to be joined by Minnesota State Mankato head coach Mike Hastings in about 20 minutes. But right out of the gate, we're joined by his opponent in the Frozen Four. That would be Bob Motzko, head coach for the Minnesota Gophers men's hockey team. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
No, and his buddy. I mean, they coached together, right?
No, he was a player. I was a coach, but we were in college together.
Okay, but didn't you coach at Minnesota together or not?
No, we missed each other. Missed each other?
Okay.
So are you buddies or not? I guess that's what we're trying to get at.
I have to say yes.
Let's go back to last weekend in Worcester, specifically the first game against UMass. What was going through your mind when you were down 2-0 there in the first period?
Well, it was. I mean, I've been at so many of those darn tournaments, and when you fall down early in the first period, is especially against a team like UMass, who is a defensive juggernaut. You just had a crappy feeling. But you look down our bench. There was no panic. There was no, there was just no doubt. Our guys just plowed through it, and it was 1 minute. I mean, they scored both goals. The goalie's hand or the ref's hand went up, pulled goalie. They scored. Then they get one on the power play. And I hate that rule in college. We're the only league in the world that does that rule,
right?
And and that's the first thought in my head is we're going to lose a game because of something like that, and because it's hard in those games to fight back. But the good thing, we had a whole lot of hockey left. And obviously that first goal, our first goal at the end of the first period was monster to get us back in at 2-1. And our guys hunkered in. And you take that 1 minute out where we gave up 2 goals. We only gave up 1 goal the whole weekend. So our guys had great fight, great resolve, and we made plays.
Did you have to what was the message when you got down 2-0 to the guys? I mean, did you sense were they
Nope.
okay?
They were fine. And, obviously the guys on the bench we're fine. We're fine, and you're saying the obvious, but
yeah,
what you really needed to happen was, and we said they stop at 2 and we will get back in this thing. And because we were playing very well. I mean, we were going toe to toe, but it's the goal we scored at the end of the first that was critical. That jump started us. We got to, get ourselves back in the locker room between periods. You're only down a goal. And, we gave up another one, which we had to fight back from. But our guys, it settled us back in to where we get back and play the game we wanted to play.
Yeah, it appeared to me, and that, when they got that lead, and you mentioned they're good defensively, but man, they sat back. They just tried to get pucks. Could you sense that they were, if you put some pressure on them, that you were going to get one eventually? Because they, to me, they went in complete prevent.
Or
not. I don't know.
I'm going to they came out, they play a really aggressive forechecking style, and it's so intense. You can't keep that up. Like, there's no way any team can, unless we let it happen. But we've dug our heels in, and that was as the game wore on, the game that the teeter-totter got back to the level point to where we started putting pressure on them. Mm-hmm. We had fight in us too.
Yep.
And then obviously critical Bro scores that second goal, 3-2. Now we got a game, and then it turned into who is going to make a play? And Matthew Nyes and Myers Hughlin, and because it was a heavyweight battle, but you needed a skill guy at some point or one of your talent players to make a play or get a break, and Matthew Nyes blocks that the clearing pass in the third period on our power play and rips one in. You got to have that too if you're going to win some big games.
Right.
Bob, I have to imagine, as difficult as it is being down 2 goals 2 different times in that first game against a good team in the NCAA tournament, that psychologically to be able to overcome that adversity and then to win the fashion you did in overtime, I almost felt like maybe like psychologically that carried over into the Western Michigan game because you guys seemed to play a pretty complete game there.
It sure could have. I mean, I take it a step further. Outside of 1 minute, we played pretty well the entire 2 games. So the weekend we were there, it's just that you find yourself down. That's called sports, and you got to battle. And we had great resolve and great battle all weekend long. And you could definitely be right, Brandon, that it gave us momentum. I liked our focus leading into the game against Western Michigan, and our guys played a pretty flawless game.
Hey, Bob, I don't know how many times, we talked during the year or whatever. And you guys were, you'd win one, you'd lose one, you'd win one, you'd lose one, and staying around that 500 mark and all blah, 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 blah. But not one time did you lose confidence in the group that you had. You always, you told me, I don't know how many times, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. They're learning how to play, especially, your younger guys who really stepped up in the second half.
There's no question. Our freshmen were a big part of our offense in the month of February. I don't remember the stat now, but I don't have it in front of me, but 16 goals or something crazy.
Right.
We might be off in the month of February. We went on a roll, but we needed our young, and I talk about our young guys. We're not there without our older guys.
No.
We needed that to come together. But more to your point, it's kind of because this is a Minnesota Gophers, and when you split, the media takes it negative, and you can't, when you coach a program, like you can't listen to it because, now if I don't like how we're playing but we were playing pretty good teams during the stretch where I think it was 5 straight splits in a row in the first part of the year.
Yeah.
But a monster win at North Dakota, monster win at Michigan. So we'd come back, watch film as a staff and then tune the noise out. We liked our team. Like we're just fine. We got a chance to be there at the end. We needed some things to come together. And that's one of the things in sports, in a big market with a lot of eyeballs on our program. We got to tune a lot of that noise out. If you like your team, you like your players, just let us do our thing, follow us, support, I know that I've been on a team where I know we're behind the 8 ball and things aren't going to be good. But this team, we were fine. And that's the attitude we had to have with them as we move forward. And it sure proved out. We haven't lost a whole lot since Christmas.
Yeah, right. You're 11-1 in your past 12 games. Can you specifically pinpoint something that changed when the calendar hit the February? Was it just the change in the schedule, or was there something within your team that changed at that moment?
Well, it was things. I mean, it's not a pinpoint of one thing. Obviously Justin Close has been awful good in net for us. And he gained confidence, after getting thrown in there. It took 2, I think he went 2-2 his first 4 games.
Right.
But he had to get comfortable. And then, the McLaughlin, Walker, Brodzinski, Ben Myers, and then our entire decor was returning. You guys, Faber, Lacombe, Johnson, Kester, Brinkman, Stodaker. Yeah. It was the young guys needed to catch up because we did need added offense. And, and I've talked about it, we had 5 freshman forwards come in and we needed those 5 freshmen to contribute. Well, Nyes and Lucius, have jumped out. They jumped out front because they're elite players right off the bat. And they're players the Gophers were used to seeing, elite freshmen. Well, Hughlin just kept chugging along and really gained confidence as it went. And then Bros and Pitlick, the same thing. They might not have got all the accolades, early, but you saw them growing. And then now the second half, freshmen scored 4 of our 7 goals at the region, behind. Now I know Nye's got 2 of them, But those 5 guys, to join the other our returning players, that needed to come together, and it did.
Let's talk about Hughlin a little bit. A phenomenal play on the Myers goal. But that aside, you made the switch. You put him up there with Myers and Nyes. Was that something that just, what was the reasoning behind that at the time?
Well, we'd been wanting to do it, and I know it was written about when I was asked about it out there. We've been wanting to do it, earlier, but we kept winning games, so you don't make a lot of changes when you're winning games.
Yeah.
Because that line plays a heavy down low game, and Hughlin he is uncanny strong, and exactly why we put him in there was the goal in overtime, because he can have defensemen hang on him down low and make plays, and Nyes and Myers, to be effective needed some strength down low. They needed that battle, because the Walker McLaughlin line does that as well, but they're a transition line and a down low line. But the Myers line, they want a ground game. They want to run the ball and run it down your throat. And that was just something that we felt we should have tried it earlier, but we didn't. But thank goodness we got to it now.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about your opponent in the Frozen Four, Minnesota State Mankato. When we talked to you last summer, Bob, you mentioned all the players you had returning from last year's team that had that loss to Mankato in the NCAA tournament. It seemed like that loss kind of put a bad taste in a lot of your players' mouths. Obviously, a Frozen Four national championship on the line, you're going to have a very motivated bunch. But is there even a little bit of extra more vigor given kind of the way they kind of handled you guys last year in the tournament?
There could be, but I'll be honest. I think it's the experience overall of losing that game, and we didn't have a great game. And maybe how we handle it mentally, not much the opponent, is how we, and I think that's what we learned from at this past region is we had a real emotional victory against Omaha that year with our returning players. And then the next night we ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, I don't know, has Mike Hastings lost a game in the last 2 years? I don't know. They don't lose. So I think there's going to be the overall, not, the edge that they beat us more than the experience of, and then we had that with UMass and Western. We're both big, heavy teams. And now we're going to play a bigger, heavier, older team than all of them. And we got to be ready for the fight.
Is there a team in your league that plays a style that Minnesota State does?
No. I mean, Notre Dame, you saw 1-0 game. Notre Dame may be as close to that, but UMass and Western were more in that line, and Duluth, that of teams that play like that. So we've got some experience against it now. We had 2 games with Duluth this year. We just coming out of a region, and you got to be ready for a heavy, heavy game.
What's the biggest challenge with the Mavericks? What makes them so good?
They forecheck extremely hard. They put pressure in your zone. They've got they're experienced in every position. Yeah, and they have a defensive core that can transition the puck. They've got a handful of defensemen that can score. We have to find a way to put pressure on them and their end, and make it a seesaw event. We just can't be taking it, because they are going to get their licks. I mean, they're just too big and strong and experienced and confident. But you've got to, and Notre Dame was in there. Bemidji just gave him a heck of a run in the championship game. So there's a formula in there. It's a tough task, because Mike's done such a good job with that program and where they're at right now. But all 4 teams that are in the Frozen Four belong there. This is the right 4, and we all got a right to fight, and ours starts next Thursday.
You got the skill, you got the speed, you got the, everything. How do you, what's the message to your players to keep them on that even keel? not to get too up, not to get, you know what I mean? Going into they haven't been to a Frozen Four before.
Yeah, I think we just have to draw off the experience of what we've gone through. I mean, one, we play in an extremely difficult conference.
Yep.
Where we are battle tested.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of returning players that went through it last year in our playoff run last year and the NCAA, and we did it again this year. So we are battle tested. The biggest thing for us is you're right, handling the emotions, but be ready. It is going to be a fight. Mm-hmm. It is going to be a battle, and it's not going to be a pretty hockey game. That you're going to see a little prettier one, in the first game. With a lot of talent between Denver and Michigan.
Yep.
And it's up to us Mankato will bring the fight, their experience. They got to a Frozen Four last year. We've got to be ready for that battle.
Final question for you, Bob. Not that you're looking past Mankato, but when you're in a Frozen Four situation, you get 2 weeks off, and then if you win, you just got the 1 day in between. Obviously, Michigan well. I don't know if you have to do a ton of scouting on them, but do you do scouting on Denver during this 2-week stretch, or is it just 100% on Mankato, and then if you end up advancing, then you focus on the next match?
It's all on Mankato right now, and obviously, we have people behind the scenes. They're collecting all the film on both Denver and Michigan, and all those three staffs are doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
And and that's that day off in between that you prep for that next game. And let's face it, this time of year, 95% of what you have to be concerned about is how we play in our game.
Yep.
And being on top of what we do. And and we're here for a reason. They're all four teams are there for a reason, and you got to play your game.
Bob, really appreciate your time, and good luck in the Frozen Four.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yep,
all right,
thanks,
Bob Motzko, head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Before we get to Mike Hastings for Mankato, I just want to mention sodastick.com. Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods, all of their apparel, screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You'll love it. We're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order, so use the code KFAN for 15% off. That's sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. And we are now joined by the head coach of the Minnesota State Mankato men's hockey team, Mike Hastings. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I know this is probably an old story now, but I'm really fascinated about your version of the story. Going back to the CCHA championship game with the whole fiasco with Bemidji State, and you score the game winner, and basically like an hour later you're back out playing. What were you doing during that stretch? Were you celebrating? Were you drinking a beer? I'd like a play-by-play timeline of what you were doing after the game originally ended for the first time.
Well, you guys, thanks for having me on. And really, I was out on the rink, had some communication with some of our players, hugs and congratulatory talks, and talking about the next step because we knew we were going to the tournament. And I looked over, and your friend and mine, Tommy Sartori's coming off the scorer's bench, and he just looked a little out of sorts. He was looking around, and so obviously, knowing Tommy for as long as I have, I walked over and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "You know what, Hasty?" He goes, "We don't think that went in." And no disrespect to Tommy, but at that time, I'm like, "Well, good luck with that." I'm not sure where we're going to go with that right at that time, just because it's the trophy's been handed out, we've gone on, and but I saw him going over to talk to Don, pointed to where Don was, and Tommy went over there, and really from that point on, fellas, there, Tom's been around the game for a long time.
Yep.
For him to come back out on the ice and question that in any way, shape, or form, there's obviously was going to be some substance to it. And so at that moment, I walked by Todd Knott, my assistant, and Paulie Kirtland. I said, "Fellas, I don't know if this thing's done yet." And guys went back into the locker room. I went back into our coach's room, and now all of a sudden the time starts ticking. And as you guys know, when this isn't over right away, there's a possibility of it going a different direction. Walked in the locker room. All the guys had their championship hats on. And I walked in. I just said, "Hey, fellas, I want to let you know this might not be over. So I need you to keep it together. I'll let you know as soon as I know." and Don came down and knocked on the door. And I'll share this, and Don will probably be a little upset, but he goes, "Hey, we got a problem." And I looked at him and I said, I don't have a problem. You've got a problem. I said, we're okay right now. We're fine. And so we went down and we just looked at some video and things like that. And the only thing I said is, I said, "Hey, listen, this, I'm not involved. Tommy's not involved. This isn't either team's situation. This is, we just got to get it right." And that's all really we were after. And you know what? By the time I walked back into our locker room, all the guys' hats were in the middle of the room. They weren't on their heads anymore. And we went forward from there. And they came in, and Tommy and I and Don decided, what we were going to do for warm up as far as time and how we were going to get our restart done. And the rest is history.
I don't know if I find it funny or I just wonder how. I mean, you and Don are good friends. Don and Tommy are good friends. You and Tommy are good. I mean, all three of you have known each other, coached with each other, have been really good friends. Was there any, I don't even know the right word. How was the conversation between the three of you when you were all together?
Well, I'll tell you, at the end of the day, I think it helped. I can tell you that because, and I can state only from my shoes.
Yep.
The respect I have for Don and what he's done and where he's been, and really just the professionalism of what I've witnessed, experienced since he's been the commissioner of our league. And then you go back with Tommy, and we go back a long time, and you just know there's something in your gut that tells you, hey, you know what, this is something that there's not that anxiety of, hey, is there a perspective here that I'm not seeing? Because at the end of the day, the trust goes out the window because you trust them at where you're at. And at that time, and we didn't know the cameras were. There's a camera in between our benches, and it was as warm-ups are going on. And again, guys, the squirt and pee-wee 5-minute warm-up, move and shoot. That's what was going on. We're in a championship game, but that's what had to happen at that time. And at that time, Don comes walking out. I'm already talking to Tommy. And we literally just looked at each other and all said, "Can you believe this is going on?" And but the respect, I think, I can just say from my side, it helped me because it was one where you knew the intention. Let's just get it right for the student athletes. Let's make sure there was so much writing on it. There's a bounce that goes the other way, and the CCHA has 3 teams in the tournament. Right. And so there was a lot writing on it, but I did have a trust with the people that were involved there because of the history that we have.
Yeah. All right. Final question on this before we move on. We can finally move forward past this incident. From a coaching perspective, I have to think, you have to be prepared for a lot of different things to happen in a game or within a season. And a lot of that is unpredictable, but I have to imagine there's no blueprint. There's no playbook on how to handle the situation you were thrown into. So what was kind of your mindset as a coach at that moment?
Yeah, you're right. There's no playbook, and I'm looking at my staff. I'm looking at my staff, going, "All right, how are we going to handle this?" And at the end, I walked in, and my hands were up just like they are now, and I said, "Fellas, let's go back and be us. Control what we get to control." And you guys know, as far as hockey players and their mindset. You usually play back-to-back weekends, and one night you have a heartbreaker where you lose, and you've got to reset as you're walking out the rink because there's a game tomorrow. And so with this, it was more, hey fellas, let's go out and just get back on it. An opportunity to win a championship, opportunity to hang another banner in our building. Those are the things you want them to focus on because they can control those a little bit by their play and what's going on. They couldn't control if that game was going to be started again or not, or decided. Right. And so I think they go right back into, hey, let's play mode. And so for me, it was more about just trying to make sure that we were getting to that piece as quick as we could. And we've got some guys in there that have been through some peaks and valleys. And so just went back to relying upon our leadership group to really direct our guys walking out of that locker room.
Okay, let's go to the regional. I don't have to tell you, every game in the regional is a tough game. I don't care who you're playing. You get the big lead against Harvard. third period. Listen, Harvard had an awfully skilled team. They had some guys who could get up and down the ice and move it. They made a gallant effort, to try to tie that thing up. Talk about that game a little bit and what was going on in your mind.
Peaks and valleys. It was great to get off to a good start, guys. That first game, and Don's the one that has shared through his experiences, and I can say just in the short experiences that I've had at the tournament, that the first game's the hardest one, because there's usually a pretty quick turnaround, and previous to this year, you're playing the next game the next day, so you're just into go mode. Well, you're preparing for a first game and trying to get to the second, and we get off to a really good start. I liked our start. We not only got a lead, but we're able to extend it a little bit. And then here comes, and you knew Harvard was going to make a push, because you look at their roster, the NHL draft picks, their power play is going to be good. And what do? We get a little bit loose. They make a push. They score a goal, and you know what? Now we go to the box with about 5 minutes left, and we've done a pretty good job, discipline-wise, up until that point. It goes in, and they get an extended opportunity to pull a goaltender, and they keep it in our end for pretty much the duration. So I think we bent but didn't break. Yeah. And once we got through that game, I do think there was, again, a renewed focus on, we had a good start, but we didn't keep our foot on the gas. And if you do that, that can end your season. And so I thought we did a better job in the second game at once we were able to get a lead. I thought we kept playing.
Yeah. The following game against Notre Dame, it seems like whenever you play Notre Dame, you have to be prepared to win a 1-0, 2-1 type game, and that's what you did. You win 1-0. Obviously, Dryden McKay gets the 23 save shutout. What is it when you go into a game like that where you kind of feel like you can't make any mistakes and you kind of have to play a little perfect game, or otherwise, if it gets in the back of the net, you're going to be up against it a little bit? How do you try to coach that mentality within a team to not try to have them playing too perfect, if that makes sense?
Well, we had, we'd gone through some games this season that were a little bit, I'm going to say they mirrored that a little bit, playing Duluth, the amount of times that we played them this year, playing against a really good Bemidji State team at the end of the year, and the game that we have already discussed. That game was a 1-goal game. We went to Tech, who played in the NCAA tournament and played very well again. Hallinan gets thrown out of the game against Duluth early. They had a very good team, and we played a lot of 1-goal games with those teams, and I thought it prepared us for the understanding of what we were going to be encountering with Notre Dame. And so, again, go back to the guys that have got you before, and I thought Nathan Smith played very, very well. Not only just the goal that he scored, Brendan Furry, and then our defensive core, and the guy that you brought up, Dryden McKay. It's one of those where, and boy, isn't it amazing, Mick, when you're on the bench, either as a player, if you're out in the zone, or if you're on the bench watching, or if you're a coach, once a team pulls their goaltender and they get possession in zone, that clock doesn't move.
No, it doesn't.
If anything, it might go the other way at times. And it seemed like a month of Sundays that they had possession in our zone at the end of that game. And I just thought we did a pretty good job of managing that, keeping things to the outside. And then we had some guys make some selfless plays, making sure that not a lot of those pucks ended up getting to Dryden.
You guys have won 17 straight games. One, have you ever been on that long of a stretch as a coach? And two, I think there might be some coaches out there that might not want to win 17 straight because maybe bad habits can creep in at some point if it just becomes too easy for you. How have you kept this team on track from letting those bad habits creep in while you've been winning so much?
Well, to answer the first part of that, I can't recall being on a run like this. And second of all, we've had, as a coaching staff, you look at it and you try to pick things out like the Harvard game. Yeah, we won the hockey game, but listen, fellas, this stuck to the tape.
Do this, and this different.
It stuck to the tape, and if we still do those things, and especially against a team like Minnesota, Harvard, you get to this time of the year, they expose you. They shine light on the cracks in your foundation, So we've had a few of those. Again, I'll go back, Brendan, and say we're relying upon a group that, I thought we played a pretty good game a year ago against St. Cloud State in that Frozen Four game.
Yeah.
And 50 seconds left. First time we'd lost a lead the entire season in the third period was that game. And so this group's been through some of those moments where if you do let your foot off the gas, it can cost you. And again, the play that was made against us with St. Cloud last year, it's give them a bucket of pucks for 2 weeks and to tip that one in the net where they did, big time play. You got to tap your hat to them or tip your hat to them. And so for us, it's just relying upon the group that's been there before, and hopefully some of the experiences that we've been through positively and definitely negatively are going to guide us moving forward.
Yeah, I look at your team, Mike, and I look at experience, and I look at maturity, and how the guys have handled everything. Because I don't care, to get yourself pumped up every night, and you want to keep winning, and you put the last game behind you and look ahead. I think this group of years has really been, they've handled it in a very, very mature way.
Well, and Mick, I give me another 7 days, will you? That's you don't want that to end. I appreciate you bringing that point up. They've done a good job at what we would call is just turning the page.
Yeah.
And because we've been humbled so often in this game, just because of the game itself, and the four teams that are going to Boston are very deserved. There's not a lot of cracks in those foundations, and they bring something different. They're multidimensional in how they can win. And you guys watched what Minnesota did in the regional. I thought was incredibly impressive. One, they go down early against a team that's coming out and trying to play heavy against them, and they didn't wilt. And then they go and they play a team that's battle tested in the NCHC with Western Michigan.
Yeah,
and they didn't wilt. And I thought they looked very good in the process of what they were doing. And so I just think the task that we've got in front of us is we've got an uphill climb. We're looking forward to the opportunity, but we do know who we're playing.
What is the challenge with the University of Minnesota? What do they do well?
Well, you know what? I've got some good insight on a couple of the players as far as being on the Olympic team. And coaching that and being around. I mean, Brock Faber last weekend was special. And I can tell you, I was fortunate to run the defenseman for the Olympics, so I was able to throw him over our bench. I think he had
the most. Didn't he have the most minutes?
Yes. And that's a coach trying to stay out of the way. And then you look at Nyes and what he brings. He's a prototypical pro right now. Big, strong, talented, skilled, heavy. Benny Myers, and not only that, but those guys, they told me they were excited about playing us when I saw them there when we were done with it, and they're complete. Their decor is one of the best decors in the country. What Close has done to go in and play the way that he's playing right now, stepping into the shoes that he stepped into. They've got depth up front. They've got experience up front. And you guys, Bobby prepares teams for this time of the year. And
oh, go ahead.
No, I just think when you combine all those things, they're good on the special teams. Western takes a penalty at the beginning of a period, and what's Minnesota do? They stick a dagger in them, right? And so to me, when you start looking at what you look at, you're playing. They've got depth, they've got high-end talent, they're very well coached, and when you've got a defensive core that can go 6 deep the way that they do, it's going to be a hard out.
Hey, speaking of the Olympics, I'm kind of mad at you. Because you and I had a conversation, and we were talking about some players, and right before, and I said, Mike, you got to put Nyes, Myers, and Nathan Smith together. So I'm watching the opening game. Nope, no combination there. I'm like,
he just said he was running the decor.
Nick, I'm going to tell you this, and I hope Quinny's watching somewhere.
Yeah,
or he gets this. I was to the right of him most nights.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this, like that whole group, those three guys. So I know we're going to see him next Thursday. We're going to see him soon after that in different colored jerseys, playing at the most elite level. They're talented. They're special in what they bring. So I'm sure Bobby, the same way with myself, we're gonna try and enjoy the time that we have with them, because I don't know if it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, Mike, really appreciate your time. Good luck next week against Minnesota in the Frozen Four.
Thanks, fellas. Have a great week.
See you, Mike Hastings, head coach for Minnesota State Mankato. Pat, one topic before we go, and we have to do stick taps. We're gonna bring back stick taps. Okay. So hopefully you can come up with one. Alex Goligoski signed to a 2-year, $4 million contract extension. So his AAV is at $2 million. There is a no move clause, which I think maybe irritated some people. But your thoughts on Goligoski and the contract extension?
Well, he goes down from $5 million to $2 million a year. He still has the legs. I think it's a really safe signing, because you're getting a veteran, you're getting a pro. He's experienced. I think he understands when he's going to need some nights off, and he will. But when he's fresh and playing, he's had a great year. I mean, he really has had a pretty good year. Hasn't been great lately, and that might be for a variety of reasons. Knowing what they have to deal with in the next couple of years, I think it was a very, very safe signing.
Yeah, and it's interesting timing, because he's been in the press box a couple times in the last couple of games. But Pat, at this stage of his career, $2 million, and I get this was kind of a wink deal beforehand, where they gave him $5 million up front for this year, knowing that the last year or two after that was going to be at a smaller amount. But $2 million, and there you put him in your third pairing. He's had a pretty. I haven't liked his play as much the last month, but he's still a pretty solid player. You can, especially if you had to move him to your third pairing role. $2 million is not. That's. I mean, he'd get more than that if he was on the open market. And there are people that are maybe annoyed a little bit by the no move clause. Well, one, they're not going to have an expansion draft, so it's a no trade clause,
right?
And and he's probably not accepting the deal without a no trade clause, because he wants to stay here. He wants to live here in Minnesota. And Pat, like, ultimately, if he ends up bombing, which I don't think he will, but if he just falls apart, like, he's a $2 million player. Like, it's not going to have like some major impact on your salary cap. So I really don't have an issue with the no move thing.
Yeah, because they're going to have to do a lot of juggling to get to where they want to be, and I don't know what their plan is for next year. Whether it's Dumba, whether it's Fiala, whether it's somebody else leaving or signing or whatever the case may be, so for that, I'm okay with it, Brandon. I really am.
And the other element of this, Pat, is you now have 6 defensemen locked in for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's possible Matt Dumba gets traded, but right now, and that's not even assuming they don't have Middleton back, which they could have Middleton back as well. They're kind of shutting Kalen Addison out from playing in the NHL on a regular basis next year.
Well, what? He's really interesting, because he's a niche defenseman. Let's not sugarcoat it. He's a really good player. He can play in the NHL. He has a skill set. We've seen it. We haven't seen an 80-game season of it, but he's NHL ready. Now, is he a guy that he may come and say, listen, I don't want to be this guy going up and down, move me. And there's a possible scenario where they could flip him for somebody else, this summer. I don't know, but with what they have on the back end now and how they are set up, there's not room for him right now.
Or next year.
Right. And so I don't know that he'll be an interesting case come this summer for sure.
He's one of those guys, Pat, that I'm with you, that he can play in the NHL. He can, I think, produce a little bit offensively in the NHL. But unless he puts on a ton of weight,
He's not gonna get taller.
No, unless he can put on a bunch of muscle, because he can be taken advantage of in your own defensive corner and in front of your own net. So when you have that type of, your defensive ceiling is not as high.
Yeah.
You kind of need to be an elite offensive defenseman. And part of it is we really haven't had a chance to see it over an extended stretch of time here. But from what we've seen, that hasn't happened. So he has to be really, really, really good offensively to level off, what he might hurt you defensively.
Yeah, and especially with Jared Spurgeon there, right? I mean, he's not going to take those minutes away. He's not going to get any of those minutes, and to have, even though Jared is so good at using his body and all of that, teams will take advantage of two smaller defensemen. They just will. And so I don't know what they're thinking on him going forward. We'll just have to wait it out and see.
Are you ready for a stick tap, Pat?
I am, Brandon.
Okay.
I am.
Go ahead.
My stick tap, Brandon, today, I tweeted something out last week after the regionals, and I praised the 6 Division I coaches here for the great people and the great coaching that they do. But this stick tap goes out to Minnesota hockey and to all of the coaches and all of the volunteers and all of the people who help make these players so good, grow, and develop. And we're lucky to have them. It's time consuming. You've been a part of it. You know it. Our good friend Nate Miller is a part of it now, and he's giving back. And without people like yourselves and all of the coaches throughout the state, we wouldn't have the players that we do.
Appreciate it. I think it's the first ever stick tap that was partially given to me, so I appreciate
well,
that.
Yeah. Well, you're part of it, and you will be a big part of it.
I'm not going to give you a stick tap, though, Pat. I'm going to give my stick tap to Taylor Heasey. Gopher women's hockey team. She won the Patty Kazmaier Award. She led the nation with 66 points, 29 goals, 37 assists this season. Third Gopher ever to win that award, joining Chrissy Wendell and Amanda Kessel. Pretty good company for Taylor.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Taylor.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. And I will see you tonight.
Yes. Well, for those that are watching this or listening to this on a Thursday when we did the taping, yes, we have Wild Fan Line tonight. All right. Bye, Pat.
Bye.
He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. Thank you so much for listening. It's been brought to you, as always, by SodaStick.com. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. Bye.